Welcome to another episode of Love Selling Hate Sales. I'm your host, Josh Wagner. You know, the sales profession is in the middle of a pretty heavy epidemic, and that is that I think the recent stat, less than 50% of reps are hitting quota. Now, there could be a number of problems for that. The quotas could be unachievable. It's possible that sales reps are just undertrained. It's also possible that they're just not motivated, but the results themselves are staggering. We're seeing highest industry turnover in history in the sales profession. We're seeing burnout levels running rampant. And frankly, we're just seeing sellers leave the profession altogether because they feel like they can't make any money and they're not being given the tools of the trade in order to do so. So today we're going to talk to Anthony Garcia. He's an international best-selling author of Catapulting Commissions, also the founder of Catapulting Commissions, Inc., also has a podcast under the same name and a sales academy under the same name as well. Anthony, thank you for joining the show.
Josh, glad to be here, man. Excited to spend time with your audience. Excited to talk. I mean, some of the stats you just shared are incredibly scary. And, you and I have been in this industry for such a long time, and I don't think I've ever seen it in this position in over 20 years.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and there's a topic we were talking a little bit about pre-show. There's tons of things to talk about, right? There's the concept that quotas are set and they're just not attainable. There's the fact that maybe sellers are just untrained. But the one I want to dive in, or at least start with you, is this idea of motivation. Because I think we always talk about bringing our C players up, bringing our B players up. But I was really interested in this concept of bringing the A players above A player level. What are your thoughts on that?
So I love the question. I love the direction. So here's the deal. We see, as a sales leadership, sales management, right? We always categorize players, A, B, C, right? We just picking up 1, 2, 3. ABC seems to be the most standard that we hear, right? And as a sales leader, we're always like, hey, it's easier to get a B player to an A player than it is to get a C to an A. We get that. And if you're a sales rep listening to this, gut check yourself, because right now, if you're in corporate sales, your management team has you labeled A, B, or C, right? It's no way around it. So the concept of, can I get my A players to overperform? There's a concept I coined called Complacent Sales Syndrome. And what that is when a high-performing sales rep develops such a comfortable nest egg that they don't feel the desire to pursue anymore. They don't feel the desire to push. And so you look at these A players, and you're saying, how do I get this person to excel at that next level? Let's take a step back and identify the A player. The A player are the people who are hitting quota. The A players are people who've made significant amount of money. The A players may have had the opportunity to turn down promotion or advancement to, a future leaders club, a rising star club. They've been on a few P clubs. They have all those accolades, and they're like, I'm pretty content with where I'm at in life. And how do you get that person to excel more? And the truth is, the conversation that we have as sales leaders has to change, because you have professional sports that's full of A players. The NBA is full of A players. There's not one player that plays in the NBA right now that's on an NBA roster that is not an A player. And if anyone tells you otherwise, go play pickup basketball with the 12th man on the Lakers. You'll quickly realize everybody there is an A player. What separates those people? What makes them the greatest, right? I love hearing Kobe Bryant talk about his work ethic. You hear, for him, it was something different. It was legacy. And how do I take that to my high-performing sales professionals and create legacy, right? Because here's the deal. The typical motivational stuff doesn't work on A players. I've been an A player before, and they're like, oh, great, do this, and you'll get a quarterly bonus of $10,000. Yeah, man, honestly, I'm going to go golf with the buddies. Nah, I think I'm going to take an extra trip to Vegas with the wife. Like, all these things come to mind, like 10 grand, dude. And if I'm a W-2, 10 grand after taxes, you're like, fuck, dude, I'm in California, man, that's $4,600 net. Nah, not even worth it. Like, you start thinking of things differently. Now, to get this A player to that next level, it's legacy. Sales managers and sales leadership has a hard time having this conversation, because if I'm in your shoes and I got an A player that I want to excel more, I talk about that A player. Well, let's help create legacy. What does that look like? And have these difficult conversations, because when you do that, sometimes legacy is not with your own organization. And you're like, oh shit. But if I can get you to excel for 3 or 4 year, however long the window is to help create legacy, your A players will work a lot harder for legacy. One of the best conversations I had with somebody who I managed and worked with, 20-year sales rep, crushing it, killing it, always made good money. And the conversation I had was, how much money do you have saved for college? Ton, don't have to worry about it. How would it feel just to have that money set aside, make enough money where you don't have to, like, you can make the choice of how you're going to pay for college and not stress about, oh, I'm going to lose, I'm 250 grand to UCLA over the next 4 years. Feel good. Yeah. How would it feel to turn around that 250 grand and be like, you know what, honey, here's your down payment on the house that we wanted to build for you. Like, it doesn't end at the road we thought. And so when you have those conversations about legacy with people, you realize there's a lot of people that want to do more than just be sales reps. So to get the most out of them, have those conversations. A good colleague of mine left one of the top performing SaaS companies in the world to create his own consulting company. What did he do with the 2 years before that? He made over 7 figures on W-2 income and finished back-to-back top 2 performances. It wasn't because he needed the money. It was because legacy, he wanted to create a consulting company where he had credibility. That manager that had that conversation with him, genius, because you just got somebody who could have floated by for 5 or 6 years and just did enough to get by, but except he took the extra steps, boosted company profits. And that's my approach. Like, I want to change the conversations we have with these A players to be, let's create legacy with you.
It's a really interesting concept. And, frankly, at my age, one that I'm living in reality, right? Everything you're talking about, like, oh yeah, you're talking to me, Anthony, this is great. Because at the end of the day, right, you get to a certain point where you know what it takes. You can go through the motions and kill it by most standards.
Absolutely.
Right. Like, so you're talking about what the sales leaders typically do is leave those people alone because they're like, listen, they know what they're doing. I don't need to bother them. I got plenty of mouths to feed here with training, coaching, enablement, all these up and comers, maybe younger sellers who are trying to find their way that are going to gobble up a lot of time. So it's just like, okay, I'll leave these few folks alone because I know that they're just going to produce for me. But like you said, getting more out of them is easier because they're just better, right? Like,
better.
I mean, you said you could talk about skill all day long. You've got 20 years under your belt. Even if the up and comer looks like they're going to be the best, that person's just better.
Hands down. And here's the thing, that A player, when you have conversations with that A player about legacy, you've been an A player. I've been an A player. I jumped into that management world in corporate. And that next step, when you get to those VP director roles, executive roles, I peeked around the corner and I'll tell you what, man, it wasn't for me. I didn't like it. I didn't want to deal with it. It was incredibly political. I'm watching friends take these roles to get these VP executive level roles on the road 225 nights a year, commuting to a corporate office for the week and flying home on the weekend. And I'm like, oh, hell no. Zero chance. I'm not doing that. There's no way in the world. And so as I see that, I'm like, and then A players, when I got into middle management, A players are like, man, you're on the road a lot. I'm like, fuck, I am. Did you make more money as a top A player or as a top manager? I'm like, an A player, guaranteed, hands down. Like, it wasn't even close. So why'd you do it? It's a really good question. I spent 6 years doing it. And I'm like, man, and doing that is what made me realize, had someone just sat down with me and said, hey, let me get more out of the A player and create legacy. Oh, I'd have crushed it. I mean, I went on a span of never missing quota. I mean, I would have never missed P clubs. I mean, it was just one after the other. And you're talking about legacy isn't monetarily. It's not whether you have a W-2 that says $500,000 or 750 or 300 or whatever the fucking number is. That's not legacy. Legacy is the ability to do what you want, where you want, when you want, and how fast you want. And learning that's what made me change my approach. It's like, the C players, you know what? I'm sure there's a new young field trainer that wants to promote. You're going to develop the C player. I'm going to work with you because I think you're the B player that'll become the A player. But my A player, yeah, that's the person I'm going to go spend time with. That's the person I'm going to take him and his wife out or him and her spouse out and have the conversations. Like, what does the next few years look like for you? What is it that you want to do? And those are the people that you teach different things to. And that's why I truly believe every sales leader has to be very well versed in a lot of things, not just your company politics and bullshit. Like, you have to know more. Where if someone's like, hey man, I want to learn about real estate investing because I think I'm sitting on a nest egg of cash and I don't know what to do with it. You know what? For Christmas, dude, I'll spend the $5,000 to get you a good mentor. Why? In doing so, I need you here for 2 more years because I'm going to make that tenfold back. You're going to make tenfold in income. It's a win-win. And you may leave me in 2 years. So what? I got the most out of you at the time I had, as opposed to you just being stagnant. So
it's such a great concept. One of my favorite sayings on this show is that nobody went to school for sales, and even less people went to school for sales management.
Oh,
and
yes.
we look at this linear path of how many stories or cautionary tales have we heard about the A player that gets tapped on the shoulder and says, hey, are you ready to be the VP or the frontline manager or whatever, depending on how big it is. And it's just like, wah, wah, wah. What a letdown, right? Because it's not the same, right? Like it's like when Michael Jordan goes to coach, like he can't coach, right? He doesn't have, not everybody's him. So you've got this disconnect between just work ethic, talent, like all of these different things that just is hard to distill. And then the other thing it gets me thinking about is what you mentioned around coaching. You can't coach everybody the same way.
No.
Do you think Phil Jackson, everyone watched Last Dance, right? Mm-hmm. As we're sitting at home in COVID, Last Dance came out, it was the best thing going. Phil Jackson coached all those guys differently. He knew what each personality needed in order to give the most to that team. And we as sales leaders need to be thinking about that more because, like you said, you're going to lose them potentially for nothing, or you could get someone highly motivated to find out what they want to do for their legacy and give you more in the near term that makes you look like a hero, frankly.
You that reference is so impactful. I want you to think about if the new sales manager that just went through management training is like, I'm the new sales manager, I'm going to manage the team, would have came on the Chicago Bulls and managed Dennis Rodman the same way he would of the rookie and said, no, Dennis, I can't let you do this. No, Dennis, you would have missed out on one of the greatest basketball players of all time because you didn't learn how to adapt and grow with the team around you. And the reason I believe Phil Jackson excelled with all the incredible athletes, it was never about Phil. It was always on purpose. It wasn't on himself. It was always about the greater good of the team. It was always about some purpose existed. And a mantra I would tell you was off self, on purpose. And he embodied that. And when sales leaders take that same approach, off self and on purpose, you should be the most adaptable, chameleon-like sales leader in the world. And when people are like, no, this is what we do because we've always done it this way, I draw the strong line. One of the things that I disliked about some of the corporations that I've had experience with is it was very much, this is the way we do things because we've always done it. Cool. That's not always going to work. And
terrible answer.
Yep. It's just, it's horrible. But, you're sitting and you're talking to some of these corporate companies that have scaled and they're Fortune 100 and they're the big boys. And I said, I get that. But I just want to let you know right now, the startups out there are eating you for lunch. They're taking market share left and right. And this mantra of here's how we do things, you're gonna go through the crisis that the car companies did of years past when they didn't innovate. Because I'm not worried about Josh, you or me being the next sales rep. I'm worried about our kids. Because that's the person that you're going to have your company grow with in the next 15 and 20 years. And if you manage these kids the way we're being managed now, they're going to tell you to go where the sun doesn't shine so fast because they've been able to make $400,000 playing videos on YouTube. So yeah, it's time for us to adapt and innovate.
Yeah. I want to even double down a little bit more on the legacy concept because you struck a chord with me personally. You mentioned that a lot of these folks, leadership is not really in their cup of tea. That's not the path they're going to go down. But what does the next thing look like? And I find myself having that conversation in my head all the time. And I just want to know, like, what are you hearing? What do top sellers want to be when they grow up?
Yeah. So, the legacy that people want to have, it's different for each person. 100%. Everybody wants something different. But when everybody says they want something different, in my opinion, they just want the vehicle to get there to be different. I truly believe people want to be able to do what they want, when they want, wherever they want, with whomever they want. And it's a line, John Lee Dumas, I had him on the podcast a couple months ago, and he shared that with me on the premise of his book. And I'm like, man, that's a really good way to explain it. So then I started having conversations with some of the people that were A players around me. And I'm like, we work on legacy. What does that look like for you? I'd like to retire 5 or 10 years earlier. Cool. I'd like to be in a position where my kids would never have to work. Okay. You start listing things that people want. And then when somebody has enough money, and here's the thing, what I'm about to share with you, I've never failed on this. Okay. Every time I come across a top performer that is like, I have tons of money, I'm comfortable, I'm wealthy, I'm self-made, whatever. Cool. How much are you going to give? What do you mean? Yeah. How much are you going to give? You want to create a legacy. What are you giving to charity? Who are you going to impact? Because if you're only here to take care of yourself and solely yourself, that's cool. But I would just want to hear you say that. And when you tell somebody that, they never say that because no one wants to sound like a jerk. Like, no. All right. So let's create a legacy. Let's create a nonprofit. I literally got so well versed in nonprofits because I had someone challenge me like, if you created a nonprofit, would you do it? Yeah. Your nonprofit startup is going to be 50 or 100 grand. Well, I don't want to pull that from my savings. Well, then go make an extra 50 or 100 grand. Like, let's have this conversation because there are people out there. I believe it is and I'm not going to get completely spiritual and ethical, but I believe it is our moral duty to leave the place we're at better than it was when we got here. So how do I do that? I find ways to create a legacy. So I guess, hopefully that gave some clarity on it, right? I mean, everybody wants the same thing. It's just the vehicle in which how they want to go and do it. I have found a lot of people want to build a personal brand of sharing their knowledge, right? Not everyone knows how to do it properly, but people want to do it. So help them. Let me teach you how to share your knowledge. And sometimes I tell people all the time, the knowledge I share isn't for the thousands or the hundreds or the millions. Honestly, the knowledge is for my share for one day that my kids go like, holy crap, Dad, I found this about you. That's cool. I want to do more. For me, I'm a winner at that point.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I often get asked, I'm almost at 100 episodes for this podcast, right? And people ask me, well, why do you do it? Well, frankly, it's pretty simple. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a broadcaster. I went to broadcasting school in college, all of those different types of things, but that's not what I ended up doing. I ended up in sales, and it gives me almost this little like cheat to keep me motivated to just keep talking to people and have fun and act like I'm a broadcaster for, an hour a week. And it's just that little like internal motivation thing that now I've heard the stats that 95% of podcasts fail after the first 5 episodes because people just don't do it consistently. So it's kind of like, oh, well, that's cool. Now I'm in the top 5% just because I do this every week and it's fun.
Oh my goodness. I love what you shared. We have a lot more in common than you know. I did not go to broadcasting school, but I had a radio show in college. I did some color commentary for the TV. Like I was interested in getting into broadcast journalism, communications major. And then I realized, right, where I went to school in Los Angeles, I was like, okay, I needed to either be making it to the NFL so I can get a second look. Wasn't good enough to make it to the NFL. Then I was like, okay, I need to be really, really attractive and compete with some of these people. I was like, to do this, like it was the guy, my senior mentor who grabbed me freshman year about broadcasting. His first job was, I don't know, Bismarck, North Dakota or something like that. I was like, yeah, I was like, not for me, man. I'm gonna go sell something. I'm not leaving Los Angeles to go to Bismarck, North Dakota for $34,000 a year to call minor league baseball to build up my brag book. So it's funny you say that, but congratulations to you on the podcast, like getting to the episode, getting to the centennial mark. Man, I love that. I know exactly how you feel. I think Catapulting Commissions were 150 episodes, and yeah, to this day, people ask like, "Oh, are you Joe Rogan?" No, man, not Joe Rogan. But you know what? I'm having just as much fun, and I enjoy every minute of it. So,
well, and you talk about ongoing education and mentorship is something you mentioned earlier, and I can't think of anything that I've ever done in my life that I've just gotten a free education. Well, not totally free. I mean, I pay for the production of the podcast and everything, but I mean, I'm just reaching out to people and saying, hey, you want to be on my show? And conversations like this are an unbelievable educational experience. And I think we were talking, I think it was pre-show, and you were saying, people have their way of doing things, right? They have their playbook, they have their cookie cutter way, but really it's the amalgamation of all these experiences and conversations and things that give you your perspective on who you are and who you want to be and how you want to approach the marketplace. It's not, nobody has an original idea, right? It's all this mashup of things.
It is 100% a mashup. Damon John on Shark Tank made a statement a couple years ago. Like, there's nothing new. Everything's been innovated, recreated, remarketed, repackaged. And there's so much truth in that. And there's so much truth in that it's interesting when you hear people come out with their new sales methodology or their new whatever. And you're like, and if you read it and if you study these sales methodologies, and I've studied, I can't even say all of them anymore, but I've studied a lot of them. The most popular ones I've definitely have studied. You start realizing you're reframing it in a method that fits in your alignment with your brand. Cool, totally get it. And if it resonates for your people, more power to you. So I love how this industry is innovating. And I love that the podcast gives us that opportunity. I'll tell you what, man, I wanted to learn how to excel on LinkedIn, right? And I still haven't really quite figured it out. I'm getting better. But I found LinkedIn's one of the most top sales influencers and had him on my show. And I joked with him. I said, hey, man, this is going to be a 1 hour coaching session. Like I intentionally asked if he can give me an hour on the show. He's like, yeah. I said, all right, I have a bazillion questions. All questions to help me. I knew they served my audience, but at the end, I'm like, man, I got a private coaching lesson here from one of the top minds on LinkedIn right now. Done deal. I'll take it. Still one of my most downloaded episodes. So yeah, I love the podcasting community. You get connected, you learn a lot. And when I listen to podcasts, I follow different people on social media. I read different books. I hear other people's shows. I love it, man. This is, thank you for doing this, man. I think the more people who are growing this community, the better this community is going to become.
Well, then, so speaking of the amalgamation of ideas and coming up with your own spin on it, right? I'm seeing here that you've got your Catapulting Commissions Strategy Pie. Talk me through that and where that came from and how that works.
Yeah. So the Catapulting Commissions Strategy Pie is really say, hey, Catapulting Commissions' first concept was, I want to teach you how to achieve your sales goal. So to achieve a sales goal was really saying the skill component, we're just going to put that to the side. Because with all honesty, that's easy. And when people are like, oh, and I watch these gurus and make sales, it's not hard. It's easy. You just have to execute. So the Catapulting Commissions Strategy Pie was, okay, well, we're going to take a 3-part component to say, we're going to help you achieve your sales goal. Yes, I'll teach you how to sell, but we're going to set up a goal on the back end. So the first part was, let's get clear mental preparation. So let's truly start with the end in mind. What is it that you want? And how badly do you want it? Why do you want it? What's the impact? And once we identify what you want, we're going to say, what happens if you fail? So the very first part of the strategy pie is, let's get clear mental preparation, identify what we want, and let's identify what happens when we fail. When you have that conversation with people and you ask them to define failure, you'd be surprised at the answers you get. There's corporate failure, didn't hit quota. Personal failure, lost my job. 1099 rep, personal failure, man, I don't even know how to pay my bills next month because I don't have any small salary. I didn't make any sales. I blew the money I had from the last big commission check. I'm struggling, right? Let's identify failure. So once we have all of that clear mental preparation, then we go with part 2, which is the actionable steps. And in the book, Catapulting Commissions, the actionable steps are designed to teach you how to achieve your sales goal by activity. Again, not skill-based. It's just, here's the activity we need to execute on. Here's how we break down the numbers. Here's how we reverse engineer the goal. So you have some clear actionable steps that get agreed upon in advance. The third part of the strategy pie is the surrounding environment. Nobody succeeds alone. And anyone who says they do is full of shit, right? The surrounding environment, you have to establish it in the beginning. So we establish this surrounding environment. And in the book, I tell people, you might have to fire your friends, your circle of influence, people who aren't supportive of what you're doing in the direction you're going. They don't deserve to be in your life. And I'm a hard believer of that. I've lost friends and family over the years. And the more I focus on where I want my legacy to go and my sales career to go, the smaller my circle of tight people has become, the bigger my network of like-minded people it has become. Oh man, I wouldn't trade it for any day of the week. So that's what we teach in Catapulting Commissions, is how to put that strategy together to achieve the goal. And again, this entire thing, I've yet to teach one sales training tactic, which we created later after the book. But in that book, that's what the strategy pie was based upon.
That's great. That's great. So we go back to the idea of not talking about skill out of the gate. If you listen to it, there's a past episode with my good friend Frank T. Ziti, and he said soft skills are anything but. Right. It's really that mentality of focusing on not just the skill. Like everyone looks at the hard skills, but the soft skills, those things are things that need to be honed and developed, just like any sort of hard skill. So I love that piece of it. I think the actionable steps, everybody at some point needs to have those clear, defined paths and things that they need to be doing. I think as you get later in your career, those are the things that start to fall off a little bit.
Yep.
But they definitely need that blueprint needs to be there. And then the surrounding environment is super interesting to me because, what is the quote? I can't remember who said it, but you're the average of the top 5 people you spend the most time with.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I think it might have been Jim Rohn who originally said it, then maybe Tony Robbins regurgitated it. But yeah, the 5 people around you, Kiyosaki said it too. 5 people around you, you take their average income, you're that person. I heard somebody recently say, look at your life. If you are the friend who hangs around with people who are 5 idiots, what are you? You're the 6th. Like, it's true.
The 6th idiot, right? I give one of my friends shit. He always tells me I'm his richest friend. I go, dude, you need better friends.
Yeah. I want to be the poorest friend.
I go, that's bad. You don't want that.
Yeah.
So I introduced him to some richer people. That was the way we made that. We remedied that situation.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, man, I have loved the show. I really like the pie. If we want to just do a quick recap of the things that you went through there, the first concept is the mental prep. And what goes into that is understanding what it is you want and what happens when you fail. The second is really that cookbook type of thing, the actionable steps that you need to take in order to meet those goals and not fail. And the third is surrounding yourself, putting yourself in an environment that sets you up for success. That could be people, that could be your workspace, that could be any number of things, but really following that type of framework is a good setup for anybody. So Anthony, where can people find you? How can they connect with you? What do you want them to know about Catapulting Commissions?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website, my name's Anthony P. Garcia, as in Anthony Paul Garcia. You can find me on every social media channel through that route there. But if you're interested in Catapulting Commissions, you go to catapultingcommissionsacademy.com. It gives you a link right there. You can pick up a copy of the book. If you go to my social media pages, you can click a copy to download the book for free. YouTube's under the same moniker, Catapulting Commission Sales Talk. It is crystal clear in each one, but I would highly recommend, if you're interested, go to catapultingcommissionsacademy.com, click the link to download the book, get connected with the community. That really is the sales training component of it, but everything starts with the framework that we just talked about in the strategy pie.
Thanks, man. So for you A players out there, let's get together. Let's grab Anthony and let's talk about building a legacy. Anthony, thank you for joining the show.
Josh, thanks for having me, brother. Thank you.